It looks like I am alive. Thank you so much for joining me, those of you on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. This is amazing. I'm super excited to just be here. Hey, Dr. Marnie, thank you for joining me. I am coming on here because I'm reading from Dr. Joseph Murphy's book, Psychic Perceptions. So I'm reading on chapter 5 today. I was going to wait, but I started reading it myself. So I thought I might as well read it to you guys since I'm already reading it anyway, right? And so here I am. So thank you so much for joining me. Those of you that are joining me on Facebook, those of you that are joining me on YouTube, welcome, and thank you. Join me tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Same places, Facebook and YouTube. I'll be bringing Sunday service. It's something that Spirit has been on me to do for probably a few years. Let's say that. A few years, Spirit has been on me to bring a Sunday service. Now, what exactly that is, I don't even know. I just know that Spirit told me to do it. So I will be coming on tomorrow, 11 o'clock Pacific time. I have to figure out a time that I can do it. I'm not at all sure if that will be the time that I'll do it most Sundays, but I'm going to attempt. I do different things on Sundays, so I have to figure out a time that works. Tomorrow, 11 o'clock Pacific time is going to work for me, where I can come on and share. And I'm not going to be on before you long. An hour tops is about as long as I want to do it. But suffice it to say, we're going to come on. There's going to be some healing, especially for sure. And the rest of it is going to flow like Spirit does me, because that is usually how Spirit does me. Because if you don't know, if you know me, then you know. But if you don't know, typically I come on, I don't have an agenda. I mean, I have an agenda, of course, but I don't have, a lot of times I don't have notes. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. 9 times out of 10, I don't. I flow with what Spirit brings and shares with me to share with you, because I am a channel and I have been forever. But I'm waking up to the potential right now, and I'm super excited and grateful. So join me tomorrow, 11 o'clock Pacific time, 11 a.m. Pacific time, and we'll be doing a Sunday service. So we'll see how it goes and see what happens and see how we like it. I already love the idea of it. I had resisted it for years because it's something that Spirit actually spoke to me around the time that I started my podcast. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now. And so Spirit kind of spoke that to me, but I kind of ignored it and I kind of pushed it back. And I kind of said, I'm not ready and I need to study some more and I need to learn some more. And if you know me, you know that I'm always studying, reading. I always have books, and that's happened since I was a child. Always had a book in front of my face. Matter of fact, that was one of the things that my mother used to say to me. You always got a book in front of your face. And then I always did. So, and I'm not any different now that I'm older. Because right now I have 2 books that I'm looking at right now. Right now, y'all. 2 books. And then I'm reading this one from a friend. And I'm still writing a few as well. So, that is my book story. But I'm going to move on. I am also having a Healing Forward masterclass, and it is simply about healing and activation. That is what that masterclass is going to be. It is August 31st at 5 p.m. Pacific time. I would love it if you would sign up and join me. The sign up link is in the description on Facebook, and I will drop it in the comments on YouTube. So, that being said, I'm going to move on so that we can start reading this book, y'all, because chapter 5 is all about extrasensory stuff. So let's get started. And for those of you that don't know me, I am an intuitive healer, and I've been an intuitive for a few lifetimes. I'm a 4th generational healer. I also love to write books. I'm actually helping a young lady write a book right now as well. So that is another thing that I do as a book shaman. And I also have Passing the Pearls, my multi-author book that I am still looking for people to join us so that we can put that book out into the universe, because it is stories about our grandmothers. I'm super excited about it. Dr. Marnie is on here. She is excited about it. We are excited to share these stories about our grandmother. So far, there's a couple of us that are doing it. I'm looking for at least 5 to 7 more people to join us to do this project, because I know that it's going to be a bestseller. Also, because we are going to make it a bestseller. And also because it's stories about our grandmothers. And I don't know about you, but my grandmother was my world when she was here. She's still kind of my world, but she was my world when she was here. And I have amazing stories about her. And so I decided, actually, Spirit nudged me to open it up so that other people can bring stories about their grandmother and share, especially in this world where every day we're looking at shootings, school shootings, grocery store shootings, church shootings, synagogue, all kinds of things. And it's just horrible. So I really wanted to bring something into the world that was beautiful. And I believe that stories honoring our grandmothers is beautiful. So if that's something that you were looking at and you're interested in doing, make sure that you send me a message or you comment below the video wherever you are watching me. You can find me pretty much anywhere: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. Although I'm on Twitter, but I don't go on there much. So don't send me a message there, because I probably wouldn't see it till next year. Because to be honest, I have decided to cut down on some of the social because it's just too much. It's so much going on, and I needed to be quiet. I needed to get to a place of quiet for me so that I could hear what Spirit is saying to me, and so that I can do what Spirit is guiding me to do. Um, my part in this planet, in this world, what I'm supposed to do to help people. So, that being said, we're going to talk about Joseph Murphy's psychic perception. We're going to read from that. Extrasensory travel and out of the body experiences. Some months ago, I gave a series of lectures on extrasensory perception at the Wilshire Ebel Theater in Los Angeles. And subsequently, I received many letters from many of the members of the audience who had had what they termed strange experiences, but hesitated to mention them, lest they be considered queer or odd or not at all there in mind. I shall mention in this chapter in capsule for form essence. Sorry, y'all. Had an issue with my camera. All right. Um, Out of the body experience. One woman responded that on Christmas Eve, 1968, she had felt an intense desire to be with her mother in New York City. As she fell asleep, focusing all her thoughts on her former home in New York City, she immediately found herself in her mother's home trying to open the front door. She managed to enter the back door, however, and went upstairs to her mother's room, where her mother was lying awake in bed reading the paper. Her mother was startled and asked, "Why didn't you let me know you were coming? I heard you come up the stairs. I knew it was you." This woman kissed her mother and said, "Merry Christmas, Mom. I have to leave now." And she found herself back in her body in Los Angeles. She was able to describe everything in the room, and she had heard the Christmas carols on the radio clearly. This is not an unusual experience. She was focused on her mother prior to sleep and had developed an intense desire to be with her mother on Christmas Eve. This desire charged her subconscious mind with a mission, and it projected her personality in a new body 3,000 miles away. Her mother experienced the touch of her lips and hands and heard her voice clearly. She entered through the back door, even though it was locked, and sat on a chair by her mother's bed. She was conscious of being out of her body and was aware of a more rarefied body that could pass through locked doors or other material objects. Extrasensory travel to Sydney, Australia. An Australian friend told me of an interesting experience he had on New Year's Eve. On the going to sleep, he was thinking of his father's health and beg, begin to pray. Sorry, begin to pray for him by realizing that the infinite healing presence was vitalizing and energizing his whole being. And he began to imagine his father saying to him, "Son, I never felt better in my life. I had a miraculous healing." He kept hearing this over and over again, lulling himself to sleep with the imagery words of his father. And suddenly he found himself at his father's bedside. He spoke to his father, who was startled by his presence, and exclaimed, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming? What a surprise!" He said to me that he was consciously aware of and able to see clearly everything in his father's room while realizing that his other body was on a couch in Los Angeles. He appeared to his father fully clothed and had auditory, visual, and tactile capacities outside his body. He was aware that he had a subtle body capable of going through closed doors and collapsing time and space. All this took place in a few minutes, and subsequent letters from his father confirmed his visit in every detail. Some people will call this an apparition, a ghost, a disembodied entity, etc. But the simple truth is that this man had projected a new body thousands of miles from his home and was able to communicate with and physically touch his father. All I can say is wow. Wow, I would love to have that experience. I actually had something similar to that experience when I was a child. My grandmother and I actually, this grandmother I was talking about, we actually traveled to Paris together, and it was the most wild thing because I had never been to Paris. I think my grandmother might have been before, but I had never been. I still have not been in the physical, but I do remember this experience of traveling to Paris with her, and it was the most amazing thing because she traveled and I also traveled, and we traveled together, but we were both asleep. So it was the most amazing thing that I can remember from my childhood about this particular field and area. So as you can see, I've been here for many, many decades now. Man is a mental and spiritual being and will always have a body. A billion years from now, you will be alive somewhere functioning at a higher degree of awareness as life is an endless unfoldment and your journey is ever onward, upward, and Godward. Conscious apparition of a mother to her daughter. Interviewing and corresponding with men and women of all walks of life, I often hear of many extraordinary and fascinating episodes in their lives, which they hesitate to discuss with relatives or social acquaintances, lest they be considered eccentric, peculiar, or mentally disoriented. A mother living in Beverly Hills was deeply concerned over her daughter, who was ill in New York City. She informed me that one night she focused all her attention on her daughter, praying for her harmony, health, and peace of mind by realizing the God presence was flowing through her daughter as harmony, beauty, love, and peace. The following example illustrates extrasensory projection of her fourth dimensional body. She found herself in the private room in the hospital where her daughter was lying awake in bed. Her daughter said, "Oh, mother, I'm so glad you came." She and her daughter embraced and kissed each other. The daughter heard her mother's soothing words and felt her embrace clearly. This mother smiled and nodded to the nurse in attendance. Suddenly, she decided to return to her body in Beverly Hills, which she saw propped up in bed as she had left it. But she had the distinct awareness of another body to which matter of any kind, such as doors, walls, etc., offered no resistance. Then she re entered her body. This type of experience happens to many people who may have great emotional stress and a deep concern to be near a loved one. This is true particularly in times of crisis when on going to sleep with the dominant idea of being with the loved one. The subconscious mind is impregnated and they find themselves on extrasensory excursions to the location desired. They are perfectly aware of their physical bodies at the time they leave them and at the time they return to them. New York detective solves case through extrasensory travel. While attending the International New Thought Convention in July 1969, I met a friend, an old friend, who had been on the detective squad in New York for many years. I gave a lecture on extrasensory perception at that meeting. Subsequently, he said to me, "I have something to tell you, which will interest you." He had been assigned to a case involving a large robbery, and after 3 months had not received a single clue. One night in bed, he was reading The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, which is another book by Joseph Murphy, and fell asleep thinking of the solution to his assignment. Immediately, he found himself going through a window in an upstate town in New York State with which he was totally unfamiliar. He noticed three men talking and saw jewels, watches, cameras, and furs stacked up on tables. He perceived newspapers and their titles, heard the men talking, and decreed to himself, "They will not see me." He looked out the window and saw the street name as well as the name of the theater, which was directly opposite. Suddenly, he realized there were the men he was looking for. There were three rooms in the apartment. He knew he was operating in a projected body which was tangible to him and capable of motion in any direction he wished. He was aware of the magazines that they were reading and knew the town where they were hiding. He said he consciously decreed, "I want to go back to New York now." And immediately he found himself back in his body in his New York apartment. When he awakened, he called headquarters and they alerted the local police in that town. They found all the stolen goods and arrested the three men, who were startled to find six fully armed policemen in their apartment at 3 a.m. This detective told me that he had told his department he had received a tip as to their whereabouts, adding that if he had informed his superiors of his extrasensory travel, they would have suggested he go to the department psychiatrist for observation and treatment. To be able to account for this solution on the part of the detective, I am convinced that due to his emotional energy being directed towards a solution prior to sleep, he had activated the wisdom of his subconscious mind, which projected his personality in a subtle body, in which he was able to see, okay, hear, travel, and understand everything going on around him, as well as to direct its own mobility at will. Also, he had the intelligence and reasoning capacity to decree that he could not be seen by the thieves whom he was seeking. All this and much more are latent powers of man's deeper mind. So, what this is saying to me is that we all have many of these powers in our deeper mind, but we don't even use them. And so, as we begin to open up and as we begin to realize and as we begin to be aware and as we begin to awaken to all of the latent powers that we have in our mind, as we are able to begin to use those things in order to help us in our life. So many times we have questions and we don't have answers, but the answers are inside of us. We have the answers. The answers are inside of us. Through extrasensory perception, she knows her son is alive. During the course of writing this book, I received a very interesting letter from a woman in Arizona in which she stated that her son had been reported missing in Vietnam. She was distraught, wondering whether he was dead or alive. She stated that she, was very tense, worried, and torn between her hopes, fears, and growing despair. One night, however, she began to read The Power of Your Subconscious Mind and asked her deeper mind prior to sleep, "Tell me whether my son is alive or dead." Immediately in the sleeping state, she had a clairvoyant vision of her son, who stood out prominently. She saw his bare feet and long beard and the prison walls which surrounded him and the cot on which he slept. She discerned the details of his environment and knew intuitively he was alive and well. Subsequent information which she received revealed that her son had been taken prisoner, and she later received a letter from him which was surreptitiously smuggled out of the prison. Her subconscious had revealed the answer to her in its own way, and to her it was unmistakable evidence. Extrasensory perception reveals lost topaz. A doctor friend asked me if I could help her to recover her lost ring through prayer. This treasured heirloom had been handed down through the family for generations and was of great value. Oftentimes, on going to sleep, I concentrate on a request which someone has brought me during the day. In order to do this, I have a clear impression of the person of our interview and the nature of the problem, and then I affirm something like this. Infinite intelligence knows where that topaz is, and it reveals the answer to the doctor and to myself in divine order. I accept the answer. I then drop off to the deep of sleep, knowing that the answer is mine now. While I was asleep, in this instance, a scene flashed before my vision similar to a motion picture moving on the screen, and I perceived a woman of foreign origin wearing the ring and asking an older woman, presumably her mother, the value of it. I noticed the color of her apparel and her hair, which was very gray and hanging down around her shoulders. She had lost some teeth in the front of her mouth, and there was a mole on her face. I phoned my doctor friend in the morning and told her of my experience. She exclaimed, "You described my maid perfectly. She has been with me for 20 years. She couldn't do that. It can't be." I suggested that she tell the maid what her minister said and what he heard her say to her mother, and she did. The maid shed copious tears and said that she had taken the ring merely to show it to her mother, and that she had no intention of keeping it. However, the doctor had searched everywhere for it for 2 months, and the maid had helped her in the so called search, while all the time knowing in her heart that she had stolen it. My subconscious had revealed the truth about the situation. Its ways and responses are past finding out. Dr. Phineas Parkhurst Quimby of Maine experiments with clairvoyance and extrasensory travel in May 1862. I will relate an experiment that I performed with my subject Lucius in mesmerism. I asked my person in the room to give me the name of an individual written on a slip of paper. I would send the boy to find the person, dead or alive, which he would do, bringing him into the room and describing him to the audience. On one occasion, a name was handed to me, which I gave as usual to the boy. He said this was a man who had a wife and 3 children, that he left town between 2 days and was a carpenter by trade, and had left his chest of tools in a barn and had gone direct to Boston. I told him to follow the man, so he went and said he had found him in Ohio in a cooper's shop where he had died. Still, I told him to find him. Long way to go. Finally, he said he had found him, and I told him to bring him before the people and describe him. Said he, "Can't you see him? He stands here." I answered the boy that he was in a mesmeric state. He could never understand this, but admitted it because I said so. To him, there was no change. He had all his faculties, and his identity was as perfect as when awake. He expressed fear and joy at what he saw as much as though he had been in a waking state. I said, "Describe him." He commenced giving a general description, and I stopped him, saying if there was any peculiar trait or feature about him, to mention it. "Well," said he, "I should think anyone might know this man by his hair lip." I asked the person who gave me the name if this description was correct, and he said it was in every particular. He was a clear case of spiritualism. Here was a clear case of spiritualism. The subject would read sealed letters. He would go to a distant place and ask a person a question and get an answer, and yet the person would not be aware of answering any question. The above report is taken from the writings of Dr. Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, written in May 1862. Dr. Quimby knew that there was someone in the audience who was acquainted with the person in question, and that his subject, Lucius, who was in a mesmeric trance, was clairvoyant and could read the subconscious of the person who knew the missing man, the image of which was in his subconscious mind, and Quimby knew he would reveal his description in detail, including the hair lip. Moreover, his trade, family, and where he lived were all known to one or more members of the audience, and Lucius, in the trance state, simply tapped the subconscious of those present. Quimby used the term spiritualism to describe it. Today, he will call it subjective clairvoyance on the part of his hypnotized subject. One of the abilities of the subconscious is ease in acquiring information by clairvoyance. Dr. Phineas Parkhurst Quimby's experiment in traveling clairvoyance. When at Eastport, I put a lady into a mesmeric sleep who wished to go to New Hampshire to see her friends. I accompanied her. She would smile and bow, and when I asked her to whom she bowed, she said it was our postmaster. She then said, "We have now got home." She said, "Our folks are looking." I asked her if her father was at home and if she might introduce me, and she went through the ceremony. I said, "Ask your father if anything has happened since you left home." At this, she started and turned pale and seemed agitated. Upon asking what was the trouble, she said that her uncle was dead, that he was taken sick and had died on such a day, and now, mentioning both, also her aunt who came to take care of him had been sick but had recovered, and her brother had carried her home. All this was confirmed in a few days by a letter. Her uncle, Dr. Richardson, sent me a letter which I have in my possession, stating that all she had said was literally true. I might give many experiments of this kind. When I sit by the sick, they tell me their feelings, yet they know it not through their natural senses, neither am I aware of their presence or feelings through the natural organs. But every person has two identities. One has substance and the other the shadow. To me, the natural man is the shadow, but to himself, he is the substance, and all that he cannot comprehend is a shadow. A person walking in a mesmeric state proves to a person in a waking state that there are two states, and each is a mystery to the other. The one in a waking state cannot see how a person can be dead to the waking state and still retain his own identity and be to himself the same person as before. When he comes into natural state, the mesmeric state is lost. The mesmerized person cannot understand why the person in the natural state cannot not know what he knows in the mesmeric state. So each one is a mystery to the other. Here is the fact. Wisdom has no shadow. A belief has one. A fact is not a solid. For instance, there is a stone that is a fact, and it casts a shadow. The stone being the invention of man, it is matter according to our belief, and this belief makes it a shadow. Man acts either by his belief or his wisdom. When he is in his wisdom, he is to opinion a spirit, but to him he is himself with all his beliefs. So as his beliefs make him act in matter, every act is in his belief, and the acknowledging of matter depends on his belief. In the above report, written in May 1862, taken from Quimby's writings, Dr. Quimby mentions that each one of us has two identities, which in our modern terminology represent our spiritual nature and our five sense conditioning based on our training, indoctrination, environmental influences, and traditional beliefs. But underneath it all is the living spirit almighty, the presence of God, and as Dr. Quimby points out, in the mesmeric or hypnotic state, extraordinary powers of our mind are revealed, which transcend the intellect and that of our conscious reasoning mind. He reveals how he sent a young lady who was in a mesmeric state, sleep, on a clairvoyant journey to her home, where she saw everything that was going on at that moment, as well as events, such as the death of an uncle, which had happened some days previously. Dr. Quimby, who was clairvoyant in the passive state, accompanied her mentally and saw everything she did. Quimby knew that in the subjective mind there is no time or space. Therefore, the young woman was in her home in New Hampshire instantaneously. Such are some of the wonders of the mind which Dr. Quimby brought to light in May 1862. Points to remember. Many people have what they term strange, out of the body experiences, which they hesitate to talk about lest they be considered crackpots or be accused of mental aberrations or fantasies. A mother who is greatly concerned about a daughter's illness who is in a distant city while concentrating on her daughter prior to sleep may be projected by her subconscious mind in a subtle body to her daughter's bedside. She could converse with, kiss, and embrace her daughter, as well as experience other visual, auditories, and tactile capacities in her fourth dimensional body. A son living in Los Angeles finds himself at the bedside of his father in Sydney, Australia, and is consciously aware of everything in his father's house. He enters through closed doors and appears to his father, who is startled at his sudden, unannounced visit. Subsequent letters from his father confirm his astral travel in every detail. Frequently prior to sleep, when you find yourself praying for a loved one or a close friend in whom you are intensely interested, you may find that the person sees you clearly. You also may see the loved one and be able to converse with him, as well as describe everything in the hospital room, while at the same time nodding and recognizing the nurse, who for her part may also see you clearly and assume you are a relative visiting the patient. You appear fully clothed with all your faculties, as you are a mental and spiritual being capable of thinking, seeing, feeling, and traveling independent of your three-dimensional body. A detective requesting his subconscious mind to reveal to him whereabouts of thieves who have robbed several homes finds himself in their hidden and mentally decrees he will not be seen by them. Thereupon he collects all the data necessary to make an arrest. He finds he is able to move ponderable objects and directs the motion of his subtle body in any direction. He has volition, choice, and initiative. In other words, he is a conscious reasoning being functioning completely independent of his three-dimensional body. A woman in deep despair, wondering whether her son, who was reported missing, is alive or dead, decided to ask his whereabouts specifically and believingly of her subconscious mind. Consequently, in the sleep state, she became clairvoyant and saw her son garbed as a prisoner in Vietnam and even the context of his cell, and was immediately aware that he was alive and well. Subsequent events corroborated her extrasensory experience. A doctor who had lost a very valuable topaz asked the author to help her locate it through prayer. In the dream state, I saw a foreign looking woman wearing the topaz in question, heard her conversation about its value, saw the mole on her face, and observed that 3 front teeth were missing. When I described the woman to my doctor friend, she realized that once it was her maid who had stolen the ring and she recovered it easily. Dr. Phineas Parkhurst Quimby in 1862 conducted experiments in traveling clairvoyance. In one instance, he hypnotized a woman who became clairvoyant, and he sent her to her former home where she reported accurately everything going on, introducing him to the postmaster as well as revealing the death of an uncle and other intimate details, all of which were subsequently verified in detail. Quimby followed her on her mental journey as he was clairvoyant without going into a trance state. He demonstrated the supernormal powers of the mind. In another instance, Dr. Quimby demonstrated that his subject, Lucius, who became clairvoyant in a trance state, could graphically portray in detail a man who was missing, describing him, his occupation, members of his family, his movements and whereabouts. Dr. Quimby knew that some member of the audience was acquainted with the man in question, and Lucius, in the trance state, simply tapped the subconscious mind of the questioner, who had a complete memory picture of the missing man and knew all about him. These are the wonders of your subconscious mind. All right, so we are done with chapter 5. The next chapter is extrasensory, let's see, what is it? Perception and healing. Okay. It is chapter 6. All right, so I will start chapter 6. I will start chapter 6 on Monday. Chapter 6, extrasensory perception and healing. Hey, Barbara, thank you so much for joining me. I was not able to see the comments because it is difficult to read and look at comments. So I will definitely look at those when I am done and respond. Let's see. Let me read a little bit of them. Well, the spirit sure synced this today. Sitting outside in your video popped up bookshop. Oh, I was a librarian. That is so amazing. I love that. You know, one of the things that I love is when you are on this path, this journey, and things just pop up for you that you were looking for, or even sometimes it's things we don't even know that we were looking for. Because I have found that sometimes I'm in a place where I've been asking spirit questions, and all of a sudden somebody will do a video that addresses exactly what I've been asking, or all of a sudden I'll go on YouTube and something pop up, a subscription that I have, or sometimes not. Sometimes something new will pop up in our awareness, and it's right what we were looking for and right what we've been asking for. So I'm super, super grateful that you joined me, Barbara, and anybody else that joined. Let me see what the comments. Marilyn, Mo Madu, thank you so much for joining. Dawn, I really appreciate all of you joining me. Dawn, send me a message. Send me a private message, girl. Let's talk. Wow, she bilocated while asleep. Yes. I am so good. I'm so good, Marilena. How are you doing? Yes, I'm super, super grateful. I am so excited about just being able to come on here and just share this stuff, especially this book about psychic perceptions, because for me, I think that it's going to dispel a lot of rumors and a lot of myths and stuff like that. And then the fact that it was written like many decades ago makes it really good, because that tells us that this is not new stuff. Because many times people want to say that this is new, but this stuff is not new. There's nothing new under the sun. Everything has already been happening. It's already been here. So again, I'll be on tomorrow with Sunday service at 11. I'm so super excited about that. Like I said, it's going to be what Spirit makes it. We'll join together. Definitely we'll do some healing, because that is who I am, and that is what I have incarnated here to do, is to help people to heal. So again, thank you so much. And in whatever way that is for you, because the thing about healing is it's not linear. It's not one size fits all. It's so many different things in so many different ways. And how I heal may not be the way you heal. How you heal may not be the way somebody else heals. So everyone has their way that they heal and that they can heal and that they can receive. And we all receive messages in so many different ways. And so if you are listening, you are hearing the sound of my voice, then join me tomorrow for Sunday service. It's free. It's going to be either here on Facebook and also on YouTube. I'm going to do it at the same time, same place. It's going to be amazing. I cannot wait. Join us. So again, thank you for joining. And then I also have a Healing Forward Masterclass, which is August 31st at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we'll be doing that on Zoom. So join me, and I am super excited about that as well. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll be back on again to read chapter 6 of Dr. Joseph Murphy's book, Psychic Perceptions, on Monday. But tomorrow I'll be doing 11 o'clock Sunday service. And I am so excited about it, because like I said, Spirit had me, had given me this like years ago. And to be honest with you, it was me that stopped it, because I was afraid. I really was afraid. And so now I've stepped out of the fear of coming forth and sharing the goodness of the Lord. the goodness of God, and in a way that probably you've never experienced it, because it's not church as usual. That's why I call it Sunday service. It's going to be a coming together of like-minded spirits. So again, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now. All right. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's been blessed always. I just pasted the link for the the masterclass that's happening. It's a healing and activation. I am so excited about it, y'all, because I honestly am totally and completely being guided by spirit. So I'm super excited for that. So whatever shows up there, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a blessing in your life, and that is why I am here. And again, if you are looking and you want to join us in the multi-author book experience, it's going to be amazing. It's not expensive. I made it really reasonable just for that purpose, because I want people to be able to join and not to have to be concerned that, it's $5,000, because I actually have had invitations like that. People wanted $5,000 for me to join their multi-author book, and I'm not doing that right now. It's not doing it. So I made this one pretty reasonable for you to join. So if it's something that has been on your radar, I would love for you to come and join us and share stories about your grandmothers. All right, passing the pearls. Super excited. So join me tomorrow, 11 o'clock Pacific time, a.m. Pacific time, for Sunday service. It's going to be a blast. We're going to definitely have some healings, and we'll see what else flows through, what spirit has to share with you guys. So I appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you for subscribing. If you're not subscribed, why not? Hit the subscribe button and subscribe so that you can be notified when I come on with new videos such as this one. And make sure that you're following so that you can see my show Straight Out of Savannah that comes on. It premieres today at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time. So it will be premiering today. I think Carlos Henry is joining us. I think he's called the Copy God, and he's an amazing young man. The interview was so much fun and so amazing, and he is really in a good space, and I enjoyed that interview so much, and I loved just having a conversation with that young man, and you will enjoy it as well. And so make sure that once you check it out, that you leave me a comment and let me know how you felt about it. So again, thank you so much for joining. I hope that the rest of your day is stellar and amazing. And I will be back on again. Like I said, Sunday service is tomorrow at 11. And then I'll come back on Monday and read some more of Psychic Perceptions by Dr. Joseph Murphy. Matter of fact, we'll be reading Chapter 6, Extrasensory Perception and Healing, which is my jam. So I'm super excited about that. So join me, either one of those or both. Join me for Sunday service. Like I said, it will be usually about an hour or less. I'm not trying to come on here and be on here for 5 hours. I don't have that type of time anyway. But tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific time, come and join us. It's going to be phenomenal. I cannot wait. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.